my experience isn't my story. I can change it. And being a step parent, loving the girls, I've always, how I'm with them is how I wanted my mother to be.
Yeah.
Welcome to today's episode of Cover Your Assets. I am Joe.
And I'm Jade.
And today we are actually going to deviate a little bit from our usual format. Okay. Why is that, Jade?
Yeah, we're going to talk about something a little bit different to what we've had done in the past, yeah? So we're wanting to kind of hear from, the voice of, I guess, children of divorce, but we're going to be hearing it more from, I guess, the adults, adults who have, gone through a divorce as children, and kind of, I guess, reflecting back on that time for them, how they approached it, that transitional phase for them, and
how it affected them.
Yeah, and I guess how they look back at that time and, as they parent themselves now.
So we feel that this conversation is important to the listener because when you're going through a divorce, sometimes you're just thinking about you and your spouse, and perhaps less so about how your actions and mannerisms affect your children and whether they see those actions and mannerisms. And as one of the people being interviewed for this next segment, myself and two other adults are going to talk about how we did see divorce and how we experienced it while our parents were going through the process, and that you can avoid it or you can do lots of different things, but we see it all.
So although there might not be necessarily a list of lessons that we're trying to share with you, I think there is one lesson or message that I think that we're trying to tell the listener, that you need to be mindful of the children. If you do have children involved, you need to be communicating with them. And that's not just once, it's ongoing communication, because whether you believe it or not, they are a part of this divorce. And they have emotions, they've got feelings, and they are hurting inside, and bottling it up is just going to blow back on them later on. And if you love and care for your kids, you need to be having that open communication with them.
All right, with that, we'll get the next episode started, and I hope you get something out of it.
Welcome back to another episode of Cover Your Assets. On today's episode, we're going to be talking to adult children of divorce. I'm actually joined by my co-host, Josefti, and we're welcoming back Lesa and one of our partners here who works at Cover Your Assets, Donna. So thank you very much. And being able to share, because like when I grew up in Australia, I guess I never had I didn't actually know any families that had ever divorced there. So it wasn't until I moved over here to America that I was like, oh, it does exist and stuff like that there. So I really like to hear from you so you can share with, I think, the listener, like what that experience was like, and I guess how you kind of look back and reflect on it now as an adult, and how you kind of maybe allow that to influence your own parenting style. Really, maybe the first question we can kick off on is like, when did that divorce happen for your parents in each of your own lives there? So Lesa, would you like to?
It was 12 for me.
Yeah. So do you have like siblings and stuff like that, or was it?
I do. I have two younger brothers.
Okay.
4 and 5 years younger than me.
All right.
And so they were quite young, so yeah, it was, I can still remember that day, how it happened and when it happened. And we ended up staying with my father and not going with my mother. We had an option. And I think the most traumatic part was I just remember my brothers behind me holding on to me and saying, "We go where Lesa goes."
Wow.
And that's probably where the mother figure and, and protection of my brothers, even as they're grown men, so yeah. Yeah. So.
Well, yeah, I want to kind of get more into that, if you don't mind, in a little bit there. But Joe, when were you told, or when did your parents get divorced?
They separated when I was age 4. I think it became official age 5. I'm going to talk about their situations a little bit, just because I feel like my mom's not going to listen to this, and neither her relatives. Because I don't think, I think divorce should be talked about, but I think for their generation, there's still some shame there. But she was a victim of domestic violence.
Yeah.
So the night we left, things came to a head, and she had to get us out of there. And I remember it really clearly, even though I was age 4 and we left, never went back.
And you're an only child though, correct?
I am an only child.
Yeah. Okay. So you were kind of like, you probably maybe didn't have many people to kind of support you, or, you could talk to as like another kid through this process, yeah?
Zero.
Yeah.
No, none.
And what about you, Donna?
I think, well, we left the country. My mom and I left the country when I was 12. So, but there wasn't really conversations about, oh, here's what's happening. We're separating. We're divorced. There's no divorce in the Philippines. And I have, 2 younger siblings that we left behind. So my mom and I moved here. And it just, I don't know. It's hard to tell when the divorce happened or separation because the communication wasn't really there. I was just going along with the ride, for the ride.
Yeah. So if we can maybe shift it to like, I guess how that was told, like, were you picking up on signs beforehand, or like, how was that delivery? We've spoken about, or we've had guests on beforehand, Joe, where we've talked about like, the delivery and the execution and how it was communicated.
Yeah.
How was that done for you there, Lesa?
Well, I'm also, I was born in Vietnam, and my mom was in her early 20s, like 26, 27, when she married my dad, who was 51. And so when we came to America, my dad worked overseas and in Saudi Arabia, and he was home every 6 months for 1 month. And as a young woman coming to America, my mother, had an affair, from my dad. And I was very angry, and as a child, and I always knew, but I think my dad finally found out when I was 12. And because my mom was trying to leave her boyfriend. And so he told my dad. I mean, there's a lot. I mean, he sent some pictures of my, just stuff. Yeah, it was heavy. And my dad, and we were very angry, with my mom. I was. But going forward now, I did a lot of healing on this, and I put myself in my mom's situation, as a young woman who was alone and needed that love. And my father is a Green Beret, Special Forces, airborne, worked for the government. He's a wonderful man. He passed in '09, but, he probably didn't give her that. And as an adult now, and now advocating for my mother, she's elder, I see where she was, but it took, I'm 52 now, so it took a lot understanding of dynamics. But yeah, so that's my story. And well, it's not my story. That is what has happened.
Yeah.
And
so when they told you, were they telling the three, because you've got 2 siblings, you said, yeah?
Yeah, no, it was a dinner, and they just started fighting, and it was I can still like flashback, and my dad was very upset and hurt, and he told my mom to leave, and my mom was crying, and she said, you have a choice, and it's weird because that's a long time ago.
Yeah.
42 years. You think about that and whoa, but I see, the silver lining of everything and how things work and now, but that is what, set the stage, and that's probably why I did all the healing work I did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in that moment that you're seeing them fight and you're seeing your dad saying, you'll leave, like, how are you reacting as a kid, though?
It was, I think, more watching and witnessing my brothers holding my shirt from behind and saying, we go where Lesa goes. And that, I think, and I mean, that's a long time ago, and I can still remember the words.
Yeah.
And me just being in that protective mode and protecting my brothers. And, but like I said, that was a long time ago. And everybody has a story.
Yeah.
And that was my mom. And I have compassion for her. And you know what? My parents were still civil after all that. When my dad was, in hospice, my mom was right by his side, taking care of him. She had a partner.
Yeah.
And she was there taking care of him and loving him and respecting him, so it was pretty.
That's a lot.
It's a lot,
Joe, how was it told to you, or like, you mentioned also that your mum was, a victim of domestic violence as well. Was that involved in, like, I don't know, like, I can't imagine that they both sat down together and said, we're going to get divorced. Like,
yeah. Look, I was so young. I didn't know what divorce was. I don't even think I knew what marriage was at the time. But, this was in the late 70s. People don't get divorced. There are no resources for women. But I do remember every night I would get woken up by them fighting and screaming. And we had this hallway door that had slats in it that separated the bedrooms from the living room. And I would peek through the slats, and then they would be screaming at each other, and they'd notice, and my mom would dry her tears, they'd smile, they'd put me back to bed, and then they would continue. So that was every single night. And then, my dad one day took me to a gun store, actually, to buy a gun, because I remember he put me on the counter. He sat me on the counter at the checkout counter. He bought the gun, and I casually told my mom about it, and she was very calm. She's like, "Oh, you went to the gun store?" I was like, yeah, because I don't know. And she's like, "Okay." So anyway, one night, and my grandma lived with us. So one night, I just remember, I guess they were fighting, and she calmly told my grandma and me to go to the neighbor's house. And my grandma was like screaming too. She had her sewing scissors in her hands. But she told us calmly to go to the neighbors. The cops were called, so my mom was able to leave, and then we went to my godmother's house, and we lived there until my mom could get her, her financials together and move out. But that's how we left the situation.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well,
no one's got sitting down at the dinner table.
It's interesting.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, we were talking about it yesterday, that someone was going to almost play it out with like Lego pieces going,
Right.
Is Dad going to live over here? Mum's going to live here, and this Lego piece. Like,
not in the 80s or 70s.
definitely.
And this is the first time I'm hearing it from them. And
Yeah.
we all have commonalities in our stories. Like for me, it was just like, okay, we're going to go to America now, you and me, my mom. And so I don't know. We never sat down. We moved here. She got her life together, or we did, met someone. And I remember it was Thanksgiving break, and she's like, "Oh, come over here and I was staying with my uncle at that time because she was trying to find a job. And I arrive at the airport.
This is in the Philippines.
No,
right?
now I'm sorry. We are now here in the U.S. I was in San Francisco. My mom had to move to L.A. to find a job. Met someone there, and during like Thanksgiving break, she flew me to L.A. and we're at the airport, and there was this guy standing next to her. I'm like, oh, so that's how it was introduced to me, that there's another guy, and then right,
she's not with your dad anymore. Like,
they're separated.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, but when you were leaving the Philippines, how was that presented? Like, you and I are just going to go away on a vacation? Or?
Right. And also, I think that we're going to start a new life here.
Okay.
Your dad and your brothers are going to come, but we have to kind of get ourselves, we're going to go first, and then they come, and that didn't happen, and we ended up,
But that was a way that,
right. I don't know.
Maybe it stopped some additional questions. Oh, they're going to come later.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And then when my mom met my stepdad, and he ended up adopting my brothers, then we flew back to the Philippines to get them. And it was traumatic for me because, again, like I said, the communication wasn't open, and I'm just kind of like, even my brothers didn't know what they were getting themselves into, and they were under 10 at that time. So there's never really like, let's sit down and talk about this with my dad, my mom, my two brothers, or none of that. I think it's cultural too. And like you said, it's in the 80s.
Yeah.
And I think our parents' generation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. And that affects me today, especially with my own kids and my husband. It's all about communication, expressing love, and just being there, and even the way I parent.
Yeah. Looking at the reaction and like how you guys reacted as kids and stuff like that. I know, Joe, you were pretty young there, but like after that, the kid, Lesa with you, your brothers are hiding behind you, like they're just going to basically follow you. What did that look like after that? Like, was it sudden? Like, how were you feeling? Did you guys have conversations with each other?
No, I think we just, because we were kids, I was 12, and I think we just lived our life. My mom would come every week and leave us, I remember, lunch money. We would get $5 a day.
It's pretty good.
Wow.
Yeah. That's
Jeez.
generous.
Yeah, 3.
Nice.
I get 5. My brothers get 3, and my dad would put it on the counter. But my mom was the one every week would come. I mean, she would come and just stop by. I remember I was never allowed to wear makeup, and I would wear makeup. And Mom would just show up at my school, and my mom's Asian with her accent. And they'll say, somebody's at the office. And I'll see my mom's like, Lesa, take off your eye makeup now. No wear makeup. And I would come home walking from school, and her car would be in our driveway. And I'd be rubbing my eyes. And I'll come and she's like, I know you wear makeup because your eye red. Because she was like still there.
Yeah.
But we just kind of.
So she lived nearby?
She didn't. She lived in LA. And
Okay.
we were living in West Covina.
Okay. So how often would you see your mum? Like, it was not like you wouldn't go over there and spend the night or the weekend?
Never. I would know. But she would come like every week, give us money, and just to say hi. And my dad received her.
Yeah.
They weren't hostile, and that went on till I was like 16, and then I moved with my mom for a year in
Okay.
LA, and that's how I started living in Los Angeles. Yeah.
Before you moved in with your mum, like there wasn't parts of you going, hey, I want to spend more time with mum, or?
Oh gosh. So my mom's a professional gambler, and so she
Okay.
was never. This is like so much, but I've always been pretty independent.
Okay.
And she just always provided the finance, and I just kind of took care of everything. And so that's how it's always been.
Did your brothers, did they ever live with her as well?
They did
Okay.
no, they would come visit.
Okay.
Only I lived with my mom for 1 year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was that awkward initially, having always just been, for all those other years living just with your dad?
Well, I was starting to rebel.
Yeah.
Because I think
What, as a teenager?
As a
No.
I started to rebel, and I think that was a time when I think I needed a mother figure, and because my dad was so strong-willed, so
Because he's a Green Beret, yeah?
Green
Yeah,
Beret, yeah. So I think I needed that. So my dad said you should go live with your mom for a year, so that's where I would live with my mom. But then, because she was more disciplinary, and at the time, yeah. So,
Joe, what about you? What was that like? That reaction, like through the divorce, and how
Like
you
afterwards?
Yeah, afterwards. Yeah.
Well, I live with my mom and my grandma, and my dad disappeared.
Yeah.
So I didn't see him again until I was 35, maybe, and I saw him once.
Yeah.
Before he passed away. But yeah, he vanished. He left.
How was that? It'd almost be meeting almost a complete stranger after that length of time.
Yeah.
But that they're more, but it must have been mixed feelings, I guess.
I think I could tell that my mom was relieved that he was away, because I think she always felt like her life was in danger. And in fact, I noticed throughout the years, my mom and I would go on a vacation together, and she would wake me up in the middle of the night screaming at somebody, like in her dreams. And I knew it was him. So I think in a way I was glad that he was out of the picture, because I knew that would make her feel better. And I don't know that he was that much of a parental figure to me during the short time he was around anyway. So it's not like I missed him per se, but at the same time, going to school and being the only one in a single parent family, and, you know, let's make Father's Day cards at school, and I make the ashtray for nobody, because that's, you know, that's
Ashtray?
ashtray. Yes.
I made one.
I made an ashtray. Nobody smoked in our family. I made the ashtray for no lunch. Yeah, in elementary school.
I guess it was back in the 80s.
It was back in the 80s.
It was the smoking
Everybody
doctor and
smoked.
stuff like that, wasn't it? And,
Yes.
Yeah, but I don't know. It's the way it's kind of reflected on me. I do wonder, just because I was in these very stressful times in my early childhood where I had to be quiet or I was observing, like, I notice I have a deathly calm when there are just increased emotions and heightened voices and things around me. It freaks me out a little bit because I don't scream, I don't throw stuff around unless I'm really pushed. Don't look at me that way. But anyway, no, but for the most part, if I'm in an argument, like a really heated one, I'm the calm one.
probably just we see more whites in your eyes.
Yeah, it just comes out through the whites of my eyes. That's true. That's true.
Donna, what about you? With how was that reaction for you and your siblings? You know, like after, well, I don't know for you, like, because I guess you just kind of went off on a trip to America
and never came back.
It was like a classic
With the-
avoidance.
with the
avoidance
ex-
thing.
yeah, that's
It's similar
that's
to
not
you,
avoidant
like,
at all, is it?
right? My dad disappeared. You know, I would see him. I probably after we moved here when I was 12, I saw him 2 or 3 times throughout my life when we would visit the Philippines. But I would say no relationship with him really, and my memories of my childhood is very spotty. I think just blocking all the stuff that happened. And, you know, I understand why my mom had to leave because of the nature of the relationship. And it's just unfortunate that we had to leave the country and leave our families behind to make it happen and start a new life, you know? But as an adult, I understand now why she had to do what she had to do. But my reaction, you know, just kind of moved on with our lives. I feel like.
I guess with it, the way that it happened for you is kind of like this drawn out process as well of like going on a vacation somewhere, family's going to join us to, I guess, arriving at the LAX airport with your mum with some other guy next to her as well. So,
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's a lot of unknowns. It just
Yeah.
kind of like happens and surprises. So.
Final question for each of you before we kind of wrap up is, I guess, you know, how does it, I guess, that divorce affects you now, and, you know, just on whether you reflect on it, or how does that affect the way that you kind of parent now?
For the longest time, I didn't think I was ever going to, marriage was not in my, you know, future or even having kids. Because of what I went through with my family. It's like, why go through that? That was my imprint, right? I think somebody, that's how I based my relationship off what I saw growing up. So it took me a long time to, you know, and I dated men that are similar to my dad. And I was much older when I got married. And I think for how I parent is that Mike and I are very present. And I even decided, we made a conscious decision for me to be a stay-at-home for several years, because my mom was always working, she wasn't around, and I wanted something different for my kids. I missed that growing up, so that was me processing what had happened and wanting something completely different for them.
What about you, Joe?
So many different things. You reminded me, I kind of similar. I felt like my mom was working all the time.
Yeah.
So I think in terms of parenting, I wanted to make a more concerted effort to really tap in with my kids and have conversations with them and talk about feelings and things like that. Because I don't feel like, and I feel like I still am not like truly open with my mom, even though we have conversations, but I feel like I'm not telling her my deepest, darkest fears and secrets and things like that. And I want my children to feel comfortable talking to me about anything. In terms of relationships, I think I did have this idealized Disney movie thing, Hallmark movie thing, like, oh, I want I want the castle and the happily ever after on one side, but on the other side too, I also felt like, you know what, I don't have to stay if this is not the right fit for me. Like if it's harming me, you know, mentally and emotionally for whatever reason, whatever it is, and it's just not working, I don't have to stay forever.
Yeah.
So same for me. That's why I think I've been married and engaged a couple times, and my family was like, why do you leave these? I'm like, because I have a choice.
Yeah.
If I'm not happy, if it's not for my highest good, you know, it's heartbreaking, but I'm going to live for me. And, you know, my experience isn't my story. You know, I can change it. And being a step parent, you know, loving the girls, how I'm with them is how I wanted my mother to be.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what keeps me present and, you know, and conscious, because you can go into and follow those patterns and to be, you know, consciously aware. How do you, you know, express and all this stuff. So they're a beautiful reflection of how you know, I want to be and are.
I get what you're saying. Yeah. I think we can definitely learn good values off our parents, but we can also and maybe want to mirror some of those things. But we're also our own people.
There.
We're our own. We're going to create our own journey, and some of those things are doing things differently. You know, whether it be for, you know, disastrous, you know, traumatic things in the past, or just, you know, this is not how I want to be as an adult there. So I
mean, I will say, like, wow, my mom left my dad in the 70s with no resources, no support, shameful time to get divorced, like, amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing to protect herself and her family.
And she raised an amazing, strong woman.
Thank you.
Yeah. So guys, thank you so much for joining and opening up and being vulnerable. It's really important to, I think, hear from, I guess, that perspective of an adult. It'd be great if maybe we could hear from someone maybe, you know, in their 20s or something like that, maybe closer to that, or...
I'm in my 20s.
Me too.
I'm
Okay.
18. What are you talking about?
But, you know, like, because this can all definitely shape us. So, you know, hopefully you got some value out of this episode of Cover Your Assets, where we're kind of, you know, talking to adults of divorce there. And we'll talk to you in a couple of weeks.